Well, good morning again. We are grateful that you guys are here. We're in a series called All In. And just a quick question right out of the gate this morning. And I want a show of hands. I know it's going to be hard for you, but I want a show of hands this morning. Anybody here this week meet somebody new that you had never met before? Just hold them up for a second. I want to see how many we got. Okay, so you met some people this week. I love that. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. We are in this series called All In, and here's the thing about this series that I really wanted to try to grasp is I just really wanted us to just be honest with yourself about this relationship with Jesus Christ. And we just celebrated Easter. We know that Jesus went all in for us, and so it's only right that we would do the same for him. You know, I actually had a medical procedure done this week, little thing, and it was kind of interesting. When I was going to the doctors, I was really hoping that they were all in. Like, like I was like, hey, I didn't want him coming in going, hey, I just watched the YouTube video. I think I can do this. Like I wanted him to have some confidence in what he was doing. And so I was super excited that they were all in, that they had done that. And I think the world deserves that and is looking for that, honestly, out of believers and out of church people of all things. Like I think we do ourselves, and I think we do the gospel a disservice when we are half in and half out, and we don't look the same Monday through Friday that we do on Sunday. And so, and here's the thing. I talked last week about it. So I want you to lean into this a little bit. And I know everybody that's watching online. I don't know everybody that's watching online, but there are people that run into me all the time and say, hey, we watch online, and so we love that you're here. Let me just say to you that are online, we love that you are here. Thanks for joining us and taking time. But some of us we're all on a different level in this relationship with Jesus. And I love that. I think that's healthy for a church. I think we should have mature Christians in the room, and we should have people in the room that are like, you know what, I really don't know a lot about what you're talking about, Trent. I'm still trying to figure this out. I don't know. I've heard of Jesus. I maybe believe that he is who he said he was, but I haven't really researched it a lot. All I know is what somebody told me growing up or what I've heard in passing from different people. And so I love that part of our church, and I love that we're a church like that. But I want us to lean into this. Some here, you've been a follower forever, and you made a decision a long, long time ago that Jesus was exactly who he was. And maybe you've been on this journey your entire life. There's some people here I know for a fact that there are people that are coming and watching and attending here on a semi-regular basis that had a bad experience with church once upon a time. It's not good, and Christians did mean things and said things and weren't anything like Christ. And so some of you are open to the idea about being all in, but you have a ton of questions and you're afraid to ask them because you don't want to go to a group and ask the question and be the guy that doesn't know anything and feel stupid asking a really dumb question. And some of you have just, some of you are like me. You grew up in the church, and you have kind of at times a love-hate relationship with it because there are some things that kind of were twisted. I'm going to share some of that today about how I grew up and what the rules were and trying to reconcile what the rules were versus really, does Jesus really love me, or is he upset with me? Is he disappointed in me? Is he expecting me to behave in a certain way? And so I love that we're a melting pot of all of that. And so we're just on this journey together. But if you would just lean, I'm just challenging you to lean into this a little bit about what it means to be all in with Jesus. And I shared a little bit of that last week. We've been doing some work with our board and a strategy team here at church, and really looking at who we are and really resetting our core values. Now, some of you may be like, okay, what does that mean? What's a core value? Let me read the definition of a core value. A core value defined is they are traits or qualities that are not just worthwhile, They represent an individual or an organization's highest priorities, deeply held beliefs, and core fundamental driving forces. That is what a core value is. And so some of the core values that we've landed on, I shared one with you last week. Our very first core value that we have at Salem Grace Church of the Nazarene, and this has been a collective, it's not just me. This is not, Trent thought up some stuff in a vacuum somewhere, and we've been talking about this. One of the core values that we've landed on is we want to be authentic. Like, I would just rather be authentic than try to pretend to be something that we're not. We're real people. We don't do things right all the time, but we believe that Jesus was authentic. He was authentic in his relationships. He was authentic in how he spoke and and the message that he had. That was the gospel and the good news. And so we want to be authentic. We want to be just genuine people who, right or wrong, we might get some stuff right. We're not going to be perfect. This is not a perfect church, and I haven't found one yet. But we want to be authentic. And so I want to lean into that. I want to lean into this series. It's just about taking us from whatever point you are in this relationship with Jesus and moving the dial a little bit and pushing you on to a different level. Not asking you to be the Pope, or I'm not asking you to be Billy Graham or Jesus Christ himself yet. We're not ever going to be there, but we're striving toward that. Do you understand? That's what, there's a big church word, and you maybe have heard it and you maybe not have heard it, but there's a big church word called sanctification, okay? And basically what that means is that every day we're trying to get just a little bit more like Jesus. And so maybe by the end of our time on this earth, we look more like him then than we did when we started this journey. Okay? And so that's all I'm asking you. I'm asking you just to lean in and go and really in your mind think about what is the appropriate next step for me in my relationship with Jesus Christ. And if you're not asking that question, then what are you doing? Like, and some of I can speak to some of you church people because I'm one of you. If we get to a place in our relationship with Jesus Christ that we think we can't grow anymore, or we can't be a little bit more like him, or come to a different understanding of what he's telling us and what Scripture's telling us, what are we doing? Like, and so, and I know this for some of you, this having a relationship with Jesus, who is this, we can't see him, we can't touch him, we can't put our arms around him, we can't physically see or have a conversation with Jesus, but I know that his Holy Spirit is here because he told us that. And I know that sometimes can feel awkward or different or difficult. And I don't know if you're like me, there have been times in my life when I have thought about my relationship with Jesus, or I needed him to do something in my life, or I was praying for something specific, and I didn't feel like my relationship with him was good enough for me to be praying the prayer that I needed to pray. Has anybody ever felt like that? Like, have you ever prayed for something and go, God, I want you to do this for me, but I know that I really haven't been all in. I really haven't. I've lived with one foot in my world and one foot in your world. And so that can feel awkward, and you almost feel like he's upset with you. Have you ever felt like God's upset with you? Like over something? I have felt that often in my life, where I feel like, man, I really need him to, because eventually what happens in our lives, we all are met with some sort of crisis at some point in time or journey in our life. And it's in that moment that we need Jesus, but then we look at our life and we're like, man, is he upset with me? Or is he just one of the things, my mom is a saint. And if you haven't ever met my mom, she sits over here, but she deserves a medal for raising me and my brothers. I know. She's still earning it, believe me. But when we grew up in a church that was very. Let me just preface this by saying I'm so grateful for the way they raised us, and they taught us to love Jesus and brought us to church, and it was a priority. And there were some things though that I grew up with, and the church, and when I was a kid, was a lot different than the church is today. There were a lot of rules. We had a lot of rules. Couldn't do a lot of stuff, and it seemed to be more about what we couldn't do versus what we could do. And so it was this battle against, man, do I measure up or don't I? And I remember one of the things that we couldn't do. Part of our churches when I was a kid, and some of you I'm going to say this, and some of you are going to go, oh man, that's crazy. Like, why? Like, we couldn't go to the fair, okay? We weren't allowed to go to the fair because there were games of chance at the fair. Okay, like, when you flip a quarter on something and win a goldfish, that was like considered gambling, and you couldn't be exposed to that sort of thing growing up. That would send you straight to hell. So I know some of y'all think that's crazy, but here, let me just tell you a story. They took us to Six Flags one year, which was odd because they had the same games, at Six Flags. We got on the church bus, and some of you have heard this story before, but we got on the church bus, and we went to Six Flags, and, you ride the church bus. It smells like, gasoline. It's hot. You're sweaty, We had a great day at Six Flags, rode a bunch of rides. I go to the Screaming Eagle, ride this. Parks get ready. We're about to get back on the bus. We got to go back home, and I ride the Screaming Eagle. Well, when you come off the Screaming Eagle at Six Flags, there's all those games of chance, right? I had $1 in my pocket. I'm like, I'm going. I'm living on the edge. It was my rebellious time in my life. I'm not proud of it. It's about as wild as I got. I took this $1, and there was a game, and it had these giant Garfields. Okay, do you remember Garfield? He was as big as I was. He was huge. He was stuffed, and he had a glass plate on his head. And if you could flip a quarter onto the plate and keep the quarter on the plate, you won the Garfield. I had $1 in my pocket. It was a shot of a lifetime. I went fing and flipped that baby out there, and it landed perfectly in the center of that plate and stayed there. And I was like, yes! And so here I come back to the church bus, carrying this giant Garfield, and the look on my mother's face was mortification. She was mortified that I had gambled and won a Garfield, and so I sat next to my sin all the way home. And I loved him every time. But it was just one of those moments where I felt like, she wasn't mad at me. She was just disappointed, And there's nothing worse than your mother being disappointed in you. I think sometimes we feel that from our relationship with Jesus. And I think the disciples felt that. In fact, right before he went to the cross, and I kind of got to the end of this last week, but right before he went to the cross and he knew he was going to die, he knew that he would ascend to heaven, he knew that he was leaving them from a physical standpoint, and he told his disciples, hey, I'm going away. In fact, he told them, I'm leaving and it's going to be better. It's actually going to be better. But I think the disciples felt like, man, we're just not ready. And so here's the thing. He said in John 15:5 to his disciples, he said, I am the vine and you are the branches. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me, that's what Jesus told his disciples. In other words, if we can just remain in relationship with him, that is the key to growing to the next step. It's not like a list of 3 things that I can tell you today and go, okay, you need to do this, this, and this. I'm going to do that anyway. But anyway, it's about this relationship that you have with Jesus. And are you listening to him? Are you remaining in him? Are you praying? Are you reading your Bible? Are you listening to what he's telling you to do? Are you being obedient? That's what it means to take the next step and be all in. Okay, so here's the thing. When you think about all in, I came up with this phrase, and I think the God in you should be more powerful than any other influence on you. That's what being all in means. It means that the God that I have, this relationship that I have living inside of me. I shared a thing on Facebook this week. It was a friend of mine shared it, and I just reshared it. I wish it was my quote, but it wasn't. But it was like, church, it's more than just coming to church once a week. It's about becoming the church. You see, when Jesus left, it was all about the temple. God lived in this temple, and he was there, and he lived in this temple. And Jesus said, no, I'm doing something different. I'm going to come live in you. And you are the temple. We become the church. The interactions that you have with your people at work and kids, your friends at the gym and wherever that is, they see an image of Jesus in you or not. And so that's what it's talking about. So the God in you should be more powerful than any other influence on you. And so there's not a book, there's not a program, there's not a relationship, a drug, a temptation that is more powerful than the God that is living inside of you. And that's what Jesus was saying to his disciples. He's not disappointed in you. He's not angry with you. He loves you and wants you to grow in this relationship with him. And a relationship with Jesus should lead, here's the first point. I think that a relationship with Jesus, if we genuinely have a relationship with Jesus, and if you've made that step and you're leaning into that, and maybe you're at the first part of that and you haven't, maybe your next step is baptism, or maybe your next step is to make a public declaration that, hey, I'm going to try to figure this out and I want to be baptized. That's what baptism is. But whatever it is, a relationship, when you begin a relationship with Jesus, in my opinion, it should lead to intentional relationships with other people. When you look at the disciples, when you look at Jesus and how he lived, when you look at the disciples and these 12 guys that he had following him, when you have a relationship with Jesus, it should lead you to intentional relationships with people for the sole purpose of sharing the gospel in some form or fashion. So I'm going to talk about that this morning. We strive, I'm going to give you our second core value at the church is this. Very simple, and you're going to go, okay, that sounds churchy. We would expect to hear that, but it's the God's honest truth. We're going to be missional. Second core value is that we're missional. Now you say, what does that mean? It means that we strive for ongoing life change that makes us more like Jesus. That's what that means. At Salem Grace, if you're going to attend here, if you're going to be part of this place, we want you not to just come in here and remain where you are. We want to see life change in your life. And we want to see God making you into a better person, a better human, a better neighbor, a better husband, a better mother, a better student, a better child. We want to be better people, and we want to share that with other people. We want to be missional. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever lost something of great value before? Anybody? I lost an Apple Watch one time. It's gone. I think it was in the couch that my wife gave away. So somebody got it. I don't know what else was in the couch. We just gave it away. But have you ever lost something of great value and then found it? You know how awesome that is? I remember right after we were first married, Cheryl and I lost, she woke up one morning and the main diamond in her ring was gone, like the main diamond. And so we looked and looked for that thing, and actually we found it. It was actually on her pillow on her bed, which was amazing considering how small it was. It's a little sparkle there. We were poor. But we found it, and it was this amazing feeling. That's the same feeling that God has when one person comes to Jesus, and we want to help find those people. There's a story. There's in John, or actually in Luke chapter 15, Jesus tells 3 stories. They are the greatest stories. They're some of my favorite. He tells three different stories about 3 lost things: the lost sheep, a lost coin, and the lost son, or the prodigal son. Some of my favorite stories in the Bible. If you've never read those, go read those this afternoon. Luke chapter 15. When Jesus tells stories, and that's what I love about these stories, is because when Jesus tells stories, we get an image of who God is through his stories. And what we find out about God through those 3 stories and Jesus' stories is that he doesn't look down on us from afar. He knows us intimately. He knows that we're lost, and he will drop absolutely everything to leave the 99 to find the one lost person. And doggone it, we're going to do the same here at Salem Grace. We're going to be missional. We're going to find people who are hopeless and introduce them to hope. We're going to find people that are hurting and introduce them to healing. We're going to find people who are bitter and angry and introduce them to peace and joy through the name of Jesus Christ. That's what I want to do. We're going to have organizational habits that are going to that are going to inspire us to create intentional relationships with people who don't know Jesus. That's what we want to do. So here's the thing. When I think of, in the time that I have left, I have noticed a couple of things when you think about growth and you think about being all in and you think about, okay, what drives that? What leads a person to be all in and to go, you know what? I'm gonna make this priority in my life above everything else. And when you start putting Jesus first and you start putting God first in your life above other things, doesn't mean other things are bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, oh, you gotta quit doing all this stuff. Like, we're busy people. We play sports. But if we place things in priority over God and we're not all in, here's what I've noticed. If you want to do that, if you're leaning into this and going, okay, hey, I want to do that, here, I think just and this is just my experience and my observation of being in church my entire life and being your pastor, there are a couple of things that I think make incredible difference in your relationship with Jesus Christ. Two things, and they're kind of hard for people. But the first is this. It's your community that you are running around with. Sometimes that it may require a change. And the second piece of that is how you're serving other people. When I've seen people get serious about the community that they're hanging. Now that can be kind of dangerous because church people want to think, okay, well, this is just my community. I have to stay. And I'm not, in fact, I'm advocating against living in a bubble. Okay, don't just surround yourself and live in that bubble, because we have to have an intentional relationships with people who are nothing like Jesus. Jesus did. He had intentional relationships with people who were absolutely nothing like him, and they liked him. There was something about him that was attractional. We need to be doing those things. But we need to, the people who are shaping and that we're spending serious time with, we need to adjust our community. And the second thing is how we're serving to others. We're going to talk a little bit more about that last week. But the fact of the matter is, the gospel is relational. It was meant to be shared with other people. Have you ever seen the meme on like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or something where they'll like, there's a picture of this idealistic cabin in the woods and it's by this beautiful lake, and then there's a thing underneath it that'll say, would you stay here with no phone and internet for $100,000? I'm like, shut up. I'll pay you $100 to stay there, you know? Does anybody ever get sick of people? Go. Every hand in here should. I've seen you dodge me in Walmart. I know, you're like, oh, here he comes. Oh, man. I've seen you dodge me. I know. No, just kidding. I think sometimes there are times in our lives, and I get it. Listen, I get it. There are times that, and we are in a culture now that is so, has gotten so accustomed going, I just don't want to, and have you ever said, I just don't want to be around people right now? Has anybody ever said that? I think that's our culture a lot today. It's like, I'd just soon be at home with my feet up than have to deal with, trying to be on stage in some kind of social circle or, oh yeah, oh. I get it. That's being authentic, right? Can we be authentic here? This thing will not stay on my ear. Anybody got any duct tape? So here's the thing. I get that. But God has created us with an inherent need to be with and live with other people. In fact, Genesis chapter 2, verse 8, from the very beginning of creation, Genesis chapter 2, verse 8, second chapter, first book of the Bible. The Lord said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helper that is suitable for him." From the very beginning, God created an inherent need for each of us, for him, for other people. We are relational beings. And here's why I think this is so important, is because God uses other people to grow us. And this, the second part of this is even more mind-blowing, is God will use you to grow other people. And I know some of you are sitting here going, oh, you have no idea who you're talking to. I do. God will equip who he calls. And I'm telling you what, if you are obedient with that, you will begin to experience something in your life that is mind-blowing. And then that is, the first time it's happened to me, it blew my mind because I am an idiot. I don't have any business being a pastor. I have always felt that. Like I have always felt ill-equipped to do this job. Like for crying out loud, I'm a pastor. I see myself in the mirror, particularly the rearview mirror, you know. I have driving issues. And I'm like, you shouldn't be a pastor. But here's the thing. The first time that God used me, and somebody said, you know what, I wouldn't be a follower today because of you. You're just mind blown. God will use you in all of your nonsense and all of your illiteracy and knowledge about who he is and the Bible, and he will use you if you just say, yes, use me. If we're going to be missional, it's going to take people building intentional relationships with the sole purpose of sharing the gospel. I read an article recently, and it said, actually, some psychologists, it was a psychology article, and it says, friendship is a lot like food. Like we need it to survive whether you think you do or not. Psychologists find that human beings have fundamental need for inclusion in group and other close relationships. Did you know that? It's healthy. Later in the same article, it says we are built for social contact, and there are serious life-threatening consequences if we do not get enough. We need relationships and we need friendships, and we is always better than just me. And I know some of you are sitting here going, well, I don't need anybody. I can do this. I can figure this out. Baloney. Ecclesiastes 4, 9, and 10 says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. I mean, that's the original version of the Life Alert commercial. I've fallen and I can't get up, you know. You can't do it by yourself. Galatians 5, 13 and 14 says this, and here in a couple of weeks, I'm going to start a new series called Free Spirit, and we're going to talk about some of the freedoms that we have as Christians and as believers. It's going to be good. You're going to want to watch it. You're going to come. But anyway, we're going to spend a lot of time in Galatians. But Galatians 5, 13, 14 says this, you have been called to live in freedom, my brothers and sisters, but don't use your freedom to satisfy your own sinful nature. Use your freedom to do what? Serve one another. For the whole law can be summed up in this one command, love your neighbor as yourself. Like it or not, we have an inherent need to love and to be loved. Some may be thinking, I can do this myself. You can't. And I think we see that in Jesus. He had a crew, not a crowd. Did you know that? I mean, he spoke to the crowds. He spoke to big crowds. But really, he had a crew. He had a crew of 12 people, 12 guys that were nobodies. They were fishermen and tent makers and rough around the edges. He picked 12 outsiders, and then he equipped them with the good news of the gospel, and he sent them out, and they were obedient, and they changed the world. That method still works today. The relationships or the friends we surround ourselves will determine the kind of Jesus follower you are. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a champion of fools suffers harm. In other words, if you're hanging around passionate, hardworking, faith-filled people, you're going to end up that way. If you're hanging around lazy, critical, self-centered, ugly people, you're going to be that way. There's a quote, I think Craig Rochelle, he says, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. The people that you're hanging around with who are shaping you, that you are spending quality time with, make a difference. Are they all in? Are they on the same page with you? Hebrews chapter 10, 24 through 25. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, and let us not neglect meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his returning is drawing near. Sometimes we feel ourselves pulling away from healthier relationships and falling into unhealthy ones, and that happens. We have to be accountable with our relationships. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, maybe you need to change some of your friends that you're hanging around with. Intimacy with God equals intimacy with each other. It's interesting, I kind of nerd out on some of the psych stuff. I have a psych degree. There are 4 types of relationships. Did you know that? That we all, generally speaking, most adults have 4 types of relationships. The first one is what's called public relationships. They're the number, does everybody have their phone on them? Pull your phone. I know you do. I see some of you on it. You've been on it the whole service. Look at your Facebook. Go to your Facebook real quick. Look at your profile. How many friends do you have on Facebook? I have 2.8 thousand friends. Top that. Got a lot of friends. I don't know half of them. They're public relationships. We have public relationships. They're connections through outside influences. They're not deep. They're just acquaintances. The second type of relationship you have is social. These are first impression type relationships, and they're surface level. Much of what we have here, unfortunately, in this room. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make all the left people get over and introduce yourself to the right people. Just kidding. Some people's pits started sweating right then. Personal relationships, they're closer connections forged through shared, and so we have public, we have social. The third kind is you have personal relationships. These are closer connections that are forged through shared experiences and feelings. These are people that you're closer to. You see this, and what's weird is you see this in our community. People build connections naturally because we need each other. You go to the ball fields this summer and check out those baseball parents. They have close relationships. They're building community around baseball, which is cool, which is fine. What's odd to me is we struggle to build that same type of community around Jesus and around things that are going to actually matter. These are baseball parents. They connect through some kind of social event. I see my gym guys. I have people in here that are my gym people. Like we just connect. You connect. You build relationships. You have golf buddies. And then you have intimate relationships. These are the good ones. These are the real ones. They're raw. They're sincere. People who know you like nobody else knows you. These are the hard ones. People that know all the dirt. They've seen you ugly cry. They know your secrets. And they have refrigerator rights. You know what refrigerator rights are, right? They're the people that come to your house and open up your fridge. And go, what do you got? These are your people. These are those core. And although we crave intimacy, and honestly, if we were all honest, we crave those type of relationships, don't we? I want people in my life that open my refrigerator. I want people that know me. All of me. The good and the bad and the ugly, and they still love me. That's what a relationship with Jesus is like. That's what a relationship with each other should be like. But here's the problem, especially in the church, and I hate this so much. Although we crave intimacy, we fear it because we lack the trust in other people, don't we? I dropped my mint. Some even lack the trust in God. They've got such a wall built up that they can't even trust the creator of the universe with their heart. If you're honest, isn't there something deep down that we wish we could be truly known for? To know that someone knows all the ugly and doesn't run screaming in the other direction? To know that you, with all of your skeletons and all of your authenticity, can come out and people just love you and accept you for who you are and that want to lead you into a deeper relationship with the creator of our universe. I think that if we were honest, I think we probably all want that. Let me ask you another question, and I'm just going to get to meddling here because I'm almost done. On a scale of, and you don't have to answer this or hold your hand up or anything. Keep this to yourself maybe. But on a scale of I love scales. I've been stuck on those lately, haven't I? It's okay. We're going to do all kinds of scales. How well do you know the other people sitting in this room? People that you attend church with every week? Are those just public relationships, people that are on Facebook, you really couldn't call them by name? Are they social? Maybe you see them at church. Are they personal? Are they intimate? And we probably have maybe a mix of all of those, I would hope. On a scale on 1 to 10, how connected do you feel to the people that are sitting in this room right now? I probably would not want to know that number. If 0 was not at all, and 10 was I feel super connected to these people, and these are my people, and I know that if I walked in here with a problem, they would have my back. They wouldn't judge me. They wouldn't. If I did something really stupid this week and made a fool of myself and ended up on WJBD and the gossip column on Facebook, would these people have my back? On a scale of 0 to 10, how connected do you feel to your church family? We got to do better. There are 3 types of poverty, I think. There's material poverty, spiritual poverty, and relational poverty. And I think some of us are living in relational poverty. We haven't been willing to share enough about ourselves with anybody so that they could truly know us. We've not made any effort whatsoever to get to know anybody else in this room. When is the last time that you made a conscious effort to get to know somebody beyond just a surface level? When is the last time you picked up a phone and said, hey, I know you don't really know me, but could we have lunch sometime? I think you're kind of cool, and I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. That would freak people out. Why? Why? You won't go to a group because I'm going to feel awkward. I won't know. I don't want to have to pray, or God forbid somebody asks me a question that I don't know. Can we just be authentic? And say, you know what, I need more people in my life. And you don't have to be best friends. You don't have to do something every weekend. We're busy people. I get that. But man, if we could figure out how to be the church with each other, holy moly, our world would see that and go, why are you people like that? And we would say, because we're all in with Jesus. Let me tell you about him. Let me introduce you. I don't know a lot. I love that that's happening already in our church. It is. It's happening. So it's not all doom and gloom. There are people sitting in this room right now that have made a decision to go, you know what, I'm going to be in a group really don't know what we're doing. Well, I'm not equipped, but God is working in that. And you're building deeper relationships, and you're holding each other accountable, and you're showing up for each other. Man, when that happens organically, so here's my challenge to you and I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to skip some of this, but here's what I would do. You know, my people had asked me what my dream church is. Here's my dream church. That we're brutally authentic. That we're missional. That we care that people are leaving this earth and don't know Jesus. And that we're compassionate. That we genuinely care for one another. And I'm confident we'll never achieve this just on Sunday mornings here. It ain't going to happen just in this hour. Right? That type of connection with each other takes some intentionality on your part. It's not anything that we can try to foster some of that, and we do as a church. We try to create events and create groups and create opportunities for you guys to get together. And our prayers, we hope that maybe they'll get together in the same room and actually talk to each other. You know, they might say, "Hi, I don't know your name, but my name is this." Here's my challenge to you. I'm going to leave you with this. I want you to engage in some kind of a group. You need to be, and I don't care if it's one that's hosted by us. I've had so many people. We got Ashton Smith. I'm gonna pick on you, Ashton. I'm sorry. Ashton Smith's like, "Hey, I got an idea. How about we get together and crochet?" We got a bunch of ladies that are crocheting like bandits now. They just get in a room, and what I love when you go in that room, you go in this room and you have my mother, who is a crocheting Yoda. I will put her up against anybody on the crochet circuit, if there is such a thing. But you got my mother and you got young people. It's not about age. They have a common interest around something that they wanted to do to serve other people. Love it. You got Caleb Lush. It's like, "Hey, we're going to have something at our house." Caleb and Abby, "We're going to have something at our house every other week." And you talk to them, and they're like, "You know, this was crazy." I don't know if I didn't ask permission to pick on you, but I really don't care. It's all good. But they're like, "Hey, we're going to have some people over at our house, and we're going to just talk about stuff that's important to us. And is it all right? Maybe not." They're still figuring it out. Like, Caleb was like, Abby was sweating the day, why are we doing this? But they did it. And it's cool, and it's happening. And that's what creates this body of Christ. It creates the ecclesia. So I'm going to challenge you. Get some of your friends together. Say, "Hey, we're just going to get together. We're going to play disc golf or work on cars or crochet blankets or just get together and let our kids run around and be crazy and talk to each other and spend some time around a bonfire." Get in some friends together and start talking about Jesus and what it means for you and your friends to take the next level, to be all in. Work on building some intentional relationships. I'm going to challenge you this week to find one person that you don't know and start to intentionally build a relationship with somebody you don't know. There should be lunches happening all over this week. I want to see left people with right people at Applebee's. Maybe so. I don't know. That's all I have for you today. We're not created to be alone. Let's be authentic. Let's be missional. And I will just say this, and I truly believe this. You are one community away from changing your destiny or someone else's destiny. I believe that. I believe every single one of you are one community away from changing your destiny and the life that God has for you, or changing the life that God has for somebody else through you. So I'm going to challenge you with that. Continue to do those things. Be intentional. Maybe when I pray here, not everybody just bolt out and introduce yourself to somebody. I don't know. Be a good time. We're going to tear down chairs later, but don't take that as a symbol that we want you out of here. You can hang around in here as long as you want. Stand with me this morning. Father, thank you so much for your love for us and for your goodness and what your word teaches us. Thank you for not being disappointed in us and just loving us exactly where we are. Thank you that we can be authentic in this place, that we can come in here with all of our junk and with all of our failures and our sin and our temptation and our past performance and life. And Lord, we can just live that freely and openly and know that you want to help change that about us. Help us to be different people. Help us to be all in. I pray, Lord, that you would continue to draw us into this relationship about what it means to know you more and to be more and more like you. Bless this church. Help us to be missional, God. Help us to be mindful and looking for those individuals that don't know you and invite them to come to this place where they can be authentic and be real and find a God that loves them. Thank you for loving us the way you do, Jesus. In your precious holy name I pray. Amen. Thanks for being here this morning. Say hi to somebody you don't know before you leave.